as they drive by. That's Nathan Taylor and George Galloway opening up the show again today. Very sterling performance, bringing down the American, the Canadian, the Italian, and the flag of the EAA. While we played all those anthems, truly an international event here at Oshkosh. The former and current Canadian National Aerobatic Champ is just off the deck. Keep your eyes to the right and watch what this man does on takeoff. I've never seen it before. A lot of people were very, very pleased and surprised. And we'll count around as he starts the vertical roll series. That's first place right here. And this is the maneuver. Let's count. Watch this on the vertical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I tell you, I've never seen anything like that before. How about that? 6 slow rolls on takeoff.
I set out to make a wing, to design a wing that would roll faster than the average wing. We thought of everything that we could to make the wing roll faster. We made the ailerons bigger. We made them longer, full span. We made them thicker. They're 15% thicker than the airfoil. And we made them wider.
You want to get the strongest, stiffest, lightest structure you can. So if you look at this typical rib construction here, it's built a bit like a bridge with the diagonal bracing to carry the loads. At the corners, we have plywood gussets glued on to ensure the structural integrity of the rib. In this particular aircraft, some of the techniques that have been used have resulted in a wing cellule which is stiffer than most small biplanes, and in controls that are much more effective. The addition of additional flying wires has resulted in a much stiffer structure. Now, by stiffening up the wing by putting in this rear flying wire, Gord has ensured that the wing does not twist when you deflect the aileron. The other thing that he's done with his ailerons is he's thickened the trailing edge, and this results in lower hinge moments. So by doing two things, by reducing the hinge moments and by increasing the stiffness of the wing, he's improved the rolling response of the aircraft.
The advantages of this wing are not only the high roll rate at the higher speeds, but also the very high roll rate up to 240 degrees per second at 90 miles an hour.
Now his loop is going to be quite different as he's going to incorporate 5 slow rolls at the top of this loop. Watch me and we'll count and see if we can count as fast as Gordon does these 5 slow rolls on the top of a loop. From inverted, there he's through 1, he's through 2, he's through 3, he's through 4, he's through 5. Blink slow rolls on the top of the loop. I dare say you have never observed this before. On his descending line, he's going to do 1.5 snap rolls to inverted, then 1.5 back to right side up. There it goes, there's the inside, 1.5, lays him outside, and then a 1.5 back-to-back slow roll to the right side up position.
The highest G load that I would put on during a sequence, I think, is in competition when you have an initial pull-up at a high speed and are running in at around 200 miles an hour. On that pull-up, I will get G-forces up to 8.5 G, which is the limit on this wing, is plus or minus 8.5 G.
Most aircraft, conventional light aircraft, are designed to handle a load factor that is called 3G. That means that you can go around a corner or around a turn, and the centrifugal force generated can apply forces to the structure, which are 3 times the forces that would be applied just sitting on the ground due to the dead weight of the engines and instruments and pilot.
The G-force, of course, of 8G is not for any extended length of time. It's probably only 2 or 3 seconds. You build up to those G-forces through tolerances like anything else. At the first of the season, you find yourself blacking out or graying out. And then as you become more accustomed to it, you can get through the maneuver without any gray out whatsoever.
As one can imagine, when an elevator or down elevator comes to a stop, one is driven into the floor, and going over the top of a roller coaster hill, one tends to try and leave the seat, and these are the forces that are involved in affecting a pilot in an airplane. There's an intermediate phase we refer to as a gray out or a red out, and this is related to oxygen supply to the eye. It's the most sensitive structure in the head related to oxygen supply. And the gray out or red out comes from the peripheral vision inward as one starts to black out. Much of the research in the cardiovascular responses to G-stress and the effect of G-forces in aircraft has been researched by the military. And interestingly enough, most of the military flights involve only positive G-forces. They tend to roll a plane over and pull positive G's in the direction they want to go rather than negative G's. And of course they have G-suit protection, which protects them in the high G environment that they're involved in. In civilian aerobatics without G-suits, we're looking at shorter duration of high G-forces, and there's not a lot known about the tolerance to negative G-forces because it hasn't been of military significance, for example. The combination forces of negative, positive, negative, and high sustained negative G-forces are not well understood, and this is an area we're researching, and this is an interesting area to be involved in with the aerobatic pilots.
This plane is unique. A smaller, lighter engine cowling, improved canopy, a wider cockpit, and shorter wings. Shorter wings mean the plane has to travel faster just to stay in the air. But with the added maneuverability, it can roll at over 360 degrees per second, twice as fast as the stock version. Pulling straight up into a vertical climb can produce up to 8 Gs of stress. The wings will effectively weigh 8 times what they do on the ground, so each time everything must be checked. Always adjusting, experimenting, playing, ever trying to improve performance. For some, it's an obsession. For others, it's sport. But for everyone, aerobatics is serious business. It's a calculated risk, and no pilot can afford to leave any detail to chance. The engine has been primed. Switches now on.
Okay, on a tail slide, following a good abrupt pull-up to the vertical, maintaining the vertical, as you hit the vertical, the power should be coming off because you want to slow the engine down so that you don't get any torquing during the actual tail slide. So you want that RPM back to 600 RPM if you can get it back there as you hit the top. This will stop it from torquing. Again, looking from side to side, maintaining an absolutely vertical until the point in which you feel that you have to maybe put a little input in to positive or negative, whether you want it to go stick back or stick forward.
Now watch, as he pulls up into the hammerhead, he'll first start out with a snap roll. As he starts up, he's through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as it starts torquing, 6 as it continues to torque, 7 as it's torquing, 7.5 rolls.
For a hammerhead, you're looking out to both the left side and the right side of the aircraft to make sure that you're pulling up absolutely vertically. And you keep your head going from the left to the right. And actually, I'm now hammerheading, kicking the rudder when I have about 2 inches of deflection on the aileron. In other words, I don't watch the airspeed, but I watch for a deflection on the aileron, which is used to offset the torque of the engine. And when that reaches 1.5 inches, 2 inches, then a hammerhead, and that seems to be the ideal speed at which the airplane will swap ends very quickly.
George Price from Air Canada. There he goes into that cap rumshabout. twisting all the way around, turning it right into a spin. Now recovering, rising, doing a lot of dancing out there for him, and he goes into a 1. The 2 inverted flat spin. There's number 3 inverted flat spin. There's number 4. There's number 5. Number 6. Now watch off to the right as he does what we call the main Lumshabak, where the nose travels end over end. There he goes, nose over tail, looping and rolling the airplane into the main Lumshabak.
There are about 5 different Lumsbacks, and the one that you see most frequently is the main Lumsback. The airplane is flying a parabolic curve, and you're almost under 0 G when the airplane is tumbling. The cap Lumsback is an entry from around 170 miles an hour and a pull to the vertical, 10 degrees positive before you get to the vertical. Establish the vertical line, and then you quickly enter it. It's full right rudder, full forward on the stick with a little bit of right aileron. As you do this, the airplane should snap outside and do an outside loop twice. Okay, when it runs out of steam, it's possible with the use of power and aileron to roll the airplane into an inverted flat spin, which is very flat and very controllable.
Now watch this here. Watch it. There goes the Lumshabak as he comes the airplane on over him. He's got 2, 2.5 out on the tail. Give him a very big round of applause. Super show, Dwayne. Great, great, great.
When you've completed a really good flight, it is really the ultimate high. You have a very high feeling of achievement and can be ecstatic.
Pull up, then the final maneuver, a cap Lumshabak. The plane tumbles end over end through the air with 5 inverted flat spins to finish the sequence.